First of all, sorry, I won't be able to speak in Malayalam, though I understand Malayalam because like all Indian languages, it is Sanskritodbhav, so most of the Sanskrit words are used. So what you call as Malayalam words, many of times are Sanskrit words. So I can pick up the language. I can understand what Nandakumarji spoke or Justice spoke. So I'll have to take help of a foreign language to converse with you. Interestingly, when this Vaikom Satyagraha was going on, there was another conversation that was happening between Mahatma Gandhi and Sri Narayana Guru. And to my utter surprise, it was Gandhi who was speaking in English and Sri Narayana Guru was speaking in Sanskrit, not in Malayalam. So, as a journalist, and as a student of Indian history, Hindu civilization, when I see at these developments, they have a larger national context. And if you miss it, then you get trapped into the fake narratives about the incidents. And then as the Marxist approach generally tend to do, you start believing in certain things which are reductionist. So Vaikom Satyagraha becomes a caste movement, a personality-centric movement, or some kind of communist revolution. On the other hand, you miss out the larger national context in which this particular incident was happening, and then you start believing, oh, it was to do with modern Kerala. Where was ancient Kerala? Where was ancient Kerala? There was no ancient Kerala. There is only modern Kerala. All our identities, present day identities, are British creation. There was no ancient Maharashtra where I come from. So, while using the words, Arvi Babuji told me to speak about national renaissance. Again, it is a French terminology because they essentially believed that there was a dark age. So it requires some kind of light. So it was renaissance. For us, it was not dark age. It was a consistent struggle and consistent reinvention and innovation of our Sanatana Dharma. That's why it is Sanatan, eternal. So, Bhagwan Buddha was an internal reformist movement. From Guru Nanak Dev to Guru Govind Singh was internal reformist movement. Similarly, if we really want to understand and relocate Vaikom Satyagraha, then we need to understand three important aspects on the basis of which we should celebrate the centenary. The first important aspect is that our freedom struggle was not unidimensional as many people believe, or many parties in present day claim to be. It was not a struggle started by one party and then it led to unilinear kind of resistance against the British rule. It was a multifaceted movement against the entire process of colonization, so it had various layers. So some people were revolutionaries, some people were satyagrahis, some people who were educationists and started educational institution in Indian languages and they became freedom fighters. Some were journalists, some were scientists, but they were different forms of freedom struggles that were happening simultaneously. At the same time, there were different approaches, like we have Sarvadeva Namaskara Keshavam Pratigacchati. So all ways of freedom struggle were ultimately leading to the service of Bharat Mata. So these were different ways. At the same time, there were different approaches. While the mainstream approach was talking about how to attain political freedom, there was a very substantial approach that was taking place in various forms, which were trying to address the fundamental question, why we lost our freedom. When I see Vaikom Satyagraha, or even for that matter Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, or various reforms movements that were happening during that period, they were fundamentally trying to answer this question, why we lost our freedom. So, when I'm talking about celebrating centenary of Vaikom Mahadeva Mandira Satyagraha, I'm deliberately using this because if you speak outside Kerala that it was Vaikom Satyagraha, then there is no context. The moment you say Vaikom Mahadeva Mandira Satyagraha, then there is a context. Now why there is a context? Because there is a precedence, something happening before that and something happening after that. Like for example, of course, the contributions of then leader associated with Congress coming from various castes, they were important. Of course, the resolution that was proposed by T.K. Mahadevan was fundamental in this satyagraha. But at the same time, if we are forgetting the contribution of Swami Shraddhanand, then we are doing injustice to the satyagraha. Remember, even before the satyagraha started, Swami Shraddhananda was traveling all the way from Maharashtra, Karnataka, present day. Because that time there was neither Maharashtra nor Karnataka. And he came all the way to Kerala. Remember, nobody had documented about the so-called Mopala rebellion or the violent caliphate movement like the Arya Samajis did in Kerala. And it was Arya Samaj movement that was providing the context of Hindu unity. Not just in Kerala, but all over India. So, if you want to locate Vaikom Satyagraha, you have to locate the larger movements that were happening all over India. Many times, as I said, the communist historians have reduced the movements to certain things. Oh, it was a peasant revolution. Nonsense. It was India's upsurge against British land policy. Because it was about land policy, so it looks like peasant movement, but it was not a peasant movement. All castes and communities participated in against the British policies. Similarly, the reforms movement that started all over Bharat, it had different dimensions. So Arya Samaj was an important dimension where going back to Vedas and believing, and this precisely is the Gandhi believed that there are three stakeholders in Vaikom Satyagraha. One was of course the Travancore family and the legislature. Two was what he called the orthodoxy. So you can say broadly in present terms, just to understand that the priestly caste that were advocating certain kind of untouchability. I am aware of this because there was similar kind of practice in Maharashtra also about keeping certain distance, not just about touch, but keeping certain distance. So Vaikom precedence was largely associated with that. We have, all of you, most of us are associated with Hindu organizations and believe in Hindu consolidation, but we need to understand a peculiar feature of Hindu psyche. Though it is Sanatan, though it has ability to reinvent itself, though in it the spirit never dies, it has a very peculiar feature. What is that peculiar feature? Hindus get shrinked when they are attacked. Remember always, whenever there is an attack from outside, Hindus tend to be in their cocoons, either in terms of caste, in terms of regions, in terms of, they get shrinked. The moment they are victorious, they come out as Hindus. Always see Indian history. And that was the precise reason why Swami Shraddhanand and later Veer Savarkar was talking about the golden history. Because they wanted to instill that pride. Most of the deteriorations that happened in Hindu society with such customs were actually institutionalized and further got deteriorated post-invasions. It doesn't mean that there were no Varna system. I am neither defending it nor blaming only the external aggressions for the caste-based discrimination. What I am suggesting is these external aggressions actually perpetuated social discriminations in India. So the larger context, one, that this did not happen as one incident, because in Maharashtra, today Nandakumarji referred about the north versus south. If we really want to understand why and what was the difference, then the fundamental difference is the south of Vindhyas has experienced the longest period of all European colonization. Portuguese first came in Calicut, while the north experienced the longest period of Islamic invasion. Because of these different colonial experiences, the responses and certain traditions that we see today look different. Otherwise, our worldviews, our Sanatan Dharma is not different from each other. Our basic ideas from life to death and rebirth are not different from each other. The Sanskrit shlokas and the sankalpas that we take are not different from each other. I see Vaikom Satyagraha as a movement that rekindled that spirit outside British India and took it to the territories that were controlled by princely states. Because we see that movement happening in many parts south of Vindhyas post 1910. In 1911, there was one organization that was created, originally conceived by Justice Ranade in the late 18th century, but early 20th century, his followers actually gave it an organizational structure called Zat Pat Todak Mandal. So the caste-based discrimination should be eliminated. One organization was created for that. And one of the objective was temple entry. So it was happening at various places. But what happened immediately, as I said, the aggression, Vaikom Satyagraha was the first exception where, after facing the Islamic onslaught during Caliphate, Hindus didn't shrink, Hindus got united. Vaikom is a symbol of that. Swami Shraddhananda, as I said, played a very important role. Another important person played a role by taking it to the national level was Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya. In fact, he didn't just discuss Vaikom Satyagraha at various places in the north. He in fact proposed a resolution, because till then he was associated, he was the only person who was a bridge between Congress and Hindu Mahasabha. So he proposed, he started in Hindu Mahasabha and he proposed to the Congress office bearers that you should ensure that in your team as a Congress working team, all castes are represented and untouchability is not practiced. And if you can't do that, resign. He in fact has written a letter after Vaikom Satyagraha to Gandhiji that you should make it a rule in Congress. Of course, he started practicing, he institutionalized his Hindu Mahasabha, and then he suggested it to the Congress. Because in the last phase of Vaikom Satyagraha, it was virtually taken over by that time it was not institutionalized fully as KPCC, but the Pradesh Congress, and therefore there was no external. But what was the reason that all the way from north, Sikhs were coming here and providing langars, the food, to the Satyagrahis? The followers of Guru Nanak Dev and Guru Govind Singh coming over and providing, serving langar here, food. So this is not just 100 years of Vaikom Satyagraha in Kerala. It is also 100 years of chapati in Kerala. So, unless we locate it in, otherwise we become, the linguistic nationalism is the new flavor. How we are different from others, without realizing that how commonalities we share with others. As Hindu, as Bharatiyas, we start, of course everybody is, and that is the beauty of Bharat. Bharat doesn't see differences as conflicts. Bharat see differences as diversities to celebrate. Every one of us has got a right to choose our own God. Nobody gives that kind of freedom. Only Hindu Dharma gives that freedom. Because we don't follow just economic democracy or political democracy. We follow spiritual democracy. Vaikom Satyagraha was demanding exactly that. Because if you go through the Kakinada resolution, the wording itself suggests that every Hindu should have a right to worship. Though the actual resolution and its implementation in Travancore Assembly came only in 1936, the spirit had already begun in 1924. Now the second point, so we need to revisit Vaikom Mahadev Temple Satyagraha simply because it had a larger national context. Two, we need to understand that like many distortions about Ramaswamy Nayakar, Nandakumarji quoted something and already explained, but there are many such distortions. If you read the present day material that is being provided at the national level about Vaikom Satyagraha, you would wonder whether this was Vaikom Satyagraha. It is almost depicted as a Dravidian movement. When I told somebody, one of my friends, that I am going for such and such function, so the first immediate response was, okay, that Periyar started as a Dravidian movement, Vaikom Satyagraha. Because I believe IGNOU material says so. So, to correct the present day narrations about the incidents that happen, we need to revisit them. What happened, unfortunately, post Gandhi and Ambedkar dialogue, because we missed out on Gandhi and Sri Narayana Guru dialogue. It was a precursor to Gandhi and Ambedkar dialogue. Ambedkar was very forthright and could openly tell Gandhi on his face that I can see your belief in the caste-based discrimination in the name of Chaturvarna. Narayan Guru was differently conveyed the same thing, but not on confrontationist line. So we have to correct the narratives, because what has happened because of that, we start seeing things as if all our great figures, national leaders, were representing only their caste and communities. And they had nothing to do with the larger national interest. If that was the case, Sri Narayana Guru would have, given a caste name to the activities he started. One beautiful line that Mahatma Gandhi writes and speaks about when after visiting Shivagiri Ashram, he went to Tirunanthapuram. And there he says, the best thing that I have seen, and he calls Swamiji. He calls Swamiji to Sri Narayana Guru. He says, Swamiji is imparting Sanskrit education to even Paraya caste. Paraya. So, this was similar, happening simultaneously, that one group is fighting for just passing through a temple on the adjacent road, not even temple entry, and here the so-called present day scheduled caste are learning in Shivagiri Ashram Sanskrit language and Hindu scriptures. So, if we really want to correct the narratives and liberate our leaders from the present day political clutches of reductionism, we need to revisit these incidents in detail with original sources. Lastly, there is a present context to it. What happened throughout this period has a logic in it. Because in 1920s when this happened, by 1936, as I said, Travancore legislature passed the same resolution which was defeated by one vote in 1925. Legislature has passed with temple entry in 1936. But by 1937, Savarkar started Patit Pawan Sangatna. He built Patit Pawan Mandir. The children of sweepers class actually were the first entrant of that mandir. And he wrote a poem for that in Marathi for them to sing. Tumi ami sakala Hindu bandhu bandhu. Now I am singing Marathi, but still you will pick up many words. All of us are Hindus and brothers of each other. तो महादेव जी पिता आपला, that Mahadeva is the only father of all of us. Chala taya vandu, let us worship him together. Hasn't it anything to do with Vaikom Satyagraha? Mahadeva is the common father for all of us. Let us worship him together. And he takes the children of sweepers as the first entrant, not even Brahmins, even before performing Prana Pratishtha, he says these are the people who will go. They have contributed in constructing this temple. This is happening in 1937-38. After that came the Kalaram Satyagraha in 1940s by Dr. Ambedkar. 1927 was Mahad Satyagraha, where for access to water was first time became the talking point at the national level with a place called Mahad, where Ambedkar went and joined Satyagrahis to take water from a lake. Of course, Bharat is the only unique example. Many times we do not appreciate these things. Bharat is the only place where non-violently every caste and community has got a voting right in one stroke. Tell me, show me all over the world where all the elderly people has got a voting right in one stroke. Most of the European countries gave voting right to women in 1970. United States of America gave it in 1908, or movement started in 1908. 1940s British gave in to women. But even if we consider race, then every black person had to fight for voting right. Here in one stroke, entire Hindu society agreed for voting right to everybody because that essential spirit was there. We were essentially democratic. The distortions came over the period of time. Present day context, I am deliberately bringing, and we need to keep that in mind, hammer on each and every so-called progressive person time and again. The Shilanyas that happened of Sri Rama Mandir in 1989 had a precursor of 1969 Udupi Vishwa Hindu Parishad Adhiveshan, the session that declared Na Hindu Patito Bhavet. Hindava Sodara Sarve. All Hindus are brothers and sisters. No Hindu is downtrodden. No Hindu cannot be downtrodden. That was the declaration not by some so-called backward caste or backward class person. That was a declaration by all Hindu gurus, Shankaracharyas, so-called upper caste. So what Ambedkar was basically saying, it is a simultaneous process of changing the minds of Savarnas and giving self-belief to the depressed classes. The words that he has used, the Savarnas and the depressed classes. Vishwa Hindu Parishad culminated that actually in the form of a resolution. But the project still is not complete. The Rama Janmabhoomi movement gave it a new shape. A Kameshwar Chaupal coming from a scheduled caste, laying the foundation stone for Rama Mandir in 1989 was the culminating point of Vaikom Satyagraha. And today, on 22nd January, when we saw sons and seers of all castes and communities culminated there and participated in the Prana Pratishtha of Ramalala, it was again taking the spirit of Vaikom Satyagraha to the larger extent. As I said, the resolution that was proposed in Kakinada session had a clear-cut statement that temple entry is the birthright of every Hindu. I believe Hindu Aikyavedi should take that message forward, that every Hindu has a right to temple entry. But now making the context larger, every Hindu has a right to manage their temples. So, not just temple entry, managing our own temple is also our right. If we have to take the spirit of Vaikom Satyagraha after 100 years, then we should fight for our brothers and sisters for equal entry into temples, and we should fight for ourselves as a society to liberate temples from the non-believers of those temples. I believe this kind of interaction will give us the larger historical perspective, liberate our freedom struggle and our national figures from the distorted versions, and also enable us to take that spirit forward so that the larger cause of Hindu unity for human existence, the basic purpose of Sanatana, is fulfilled. I thank Hindu Aikyavedi for thinking about celebrating this centenary and inviting a person like me who is non-historian, non-Malayali speaking, non-intellectual class. A journalist is not supposed to be intellectual. And who knows better than Malayalis? So inviting me and making part of this great gathering, thank you very much.